have the greatest job in the world, and that's working with dogs.
Best in Show winner is the French Bulldog.
Winston won the National Dog Show. It was amazing. It was exciting. And to have a dog to be #1 dog in this country, you have to have great nutrition. And I always fed ProPlan. Just like us, when we eat well, we feel good. And I just love that food and what it's done all these years to all the dogs I've bred and all the dogs I've shown.
Welcome to Pure Dog Talk. I am your host, Laura Reeves. And I tell you what, guys, I have got the coolest guest today. We're going to be talking to Bobby Brian Lewis, and he is a Brittany guy down in Georgia, and he does guided quail hunts with his dual champion Brittanies, which anybody that knows anything about pointing dogs or any other, that's just not normal. It's not the regular course of mill. And so Bobby wanted to talk about a couple different things, and I just think it's amazing, and I should get myself right. This is Bobby Brian because his dad is Bobby. And they also,
yes,
and Dad also does the guided quail hunts. At how old did you tell me?
Still guiding at 80 years old.
Oh my God!
Lives for it. Already talking about next year's.
Oh sure, yeah, 100%. All right, well, Bobby Brian, welcome. Nice to see you. Nice to meet you, and I'm excited. Share us a little bit about your kind of 411.
Well, I'm an educator. Been teaching school for 29 years. Got into training dogs years and years ago. I think this is about year 40 of guiding quail hunts. When I first started, I was 13 or 14 years old when I was getting paid. We had a banker that would come down, he owned land, and we would take them quail hunting every Saturday and Sunday afternoon. That went on for years and years. And now it's just kind of evolved until we guided all different places, some big plantations here, preserves, those type of things. And we also have a guide service where we go to your land, bring everything and guide on your land. And a lot of people like doing that because they like to show off their piece of property. So
Sure, 100%. And I think it's really important for people to understand because, not everybody that listens to this podcast comes from pointing dogs and get some of the distinctions here. A guided quail hunt, these are not liberated birds. These are wild birds you guys are hunting on.
No, they're put out birds,
Okay.
But we call them put out birds. But
Okay.
a lot of them early release, and we do find wild birds.
Yeah.
But they put out birds early in the season, like in
Sure.
September. They'll put them in big groups, and then we supplement throughout the year at a lot of these places. We'll go out and supplement the birds that morning before the hunt starts. So we normally get up, catch dogs, drive to the preserve where we're hunting at that day, and put out some supplemental birds. We have a course we're going to hunt, and we take the hunters and hunt that course. And normally it's about a 3-hour hunt in the morning, take about a 2-hour lunch break, and then come back that afternoon and do it all over again. And sometimes they're killing 50, 60 birds in a day.
That's amazing. And how many dogs do you work through the course of your 6 to 8 hour day on the ground?
Normally we take 6 dogs, and we normally hunt each dog about 45 minutes. And then we put them up, depending on the hunters, if they can handle 2 dogs being on the ground, because that's a lot of distractions. A lot of times we'll hunt 2 at a time so we can get some backing and those type of things. And a lot of people we take are, they've got the money to do it. So
Right.
They're influential. I mean, like I've taken senators, representatives, ex-governors, state senators from Tennessee have all hunted with us. And that kind of helps promote our business, helps promote dogs also. But
Well,
that's
and
normally...
I think that's one
Go
of the really interesting pieces of it. That you're in a position to do good work for purebred dogs, for dog breeders, to help people have a positive association, like they're having a good time with these dual champion dogs and a good dog breeder, that then they take that when they think of legislation that's coming in that's potentially dangerous or problematic for dog breeders, right?
Yeah, for an example would be a lot of our dogs or we do show championships on a good many of them have show championships from conformation, and then we have another dog that might have won several field trials. Bringing all that together, and I'm sold on the show dog. I know it's probably not the proper wordage, but the conformation makes my dog, I can hunt them till they're 10, 12, 13 years old doing this type of hunting. And this type of hunting is very strenuous. And I think a lot of people don't understand that, is that we could guide 5-6 days a week. So that dog's hunting 2 hours Monday, 2 hours Tuesday, maybe off Wednesday, hunts 2 hours Thursday. And they're seeing, for example, I kept up with some stats at the end of season last year, which ended in March for us, where a dog on the ground retrieved 32 birds in 42 minutes.
Wow.
And that's the birds that were killed over them. So that's a whole different game than a field trial, a wild bird hunting, or those type of things. So it takes a different type of dog to do that type of, I call it a game that we're playing, just like hunt test or a game and those type of things. So, and we get those people that come down and they will stay several nights. So we'll hunt them day after day, a lot of scenarios. And so you kind of get to know them. A lot of them will email me, text me the next day and say, hey, where can I get this from? Where can I get birds from? Where can I, they're involved in our sport now, and we kind of got an advocate on our side.
I love that. And that, I mean, talk to me about the interactions you're able to have with these people. Like I say, you're on a positive footing. You're a known quantity to people who are in charge of legislation. And so are you able then to go the reverse, and you see something come up in your area and you call up Mr. Senator or Mrs. Senator and say, hey, let's talk about this. Can I help you with this? How does that roll?
Oh, exactly. We will, just this year, we had some legislation coming through in Georgia on dog breeders. And the first thing I did was call a couple representatives I know and go, this is going to hurt our business here. And we're trying to get good purebred dogs that have all the health testing and those type of things. And those are the puppies we're trying to sell. And this is going to kind of hinder this a little bit. And they were like, well, tell me more. And we have a little YouTube channel we post videos on. Well, a lot of those people, I make a video for them, send it home with them on YouTube link. They're now able to go back and relive that hunt.
Right.
And now that's a good selling point down the road. Because this is what happened here. And a lot of times I'll say, the dog you're hunting with now is now 11 years old. I mean, she's been doing this for 9 or 10 years here.
Right.
And look how she's holding up, because we've done the proper things as far as health testing, a purebred dog, those type of things. My dogs aren't falling apart when they get 8 or 9 years old.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big.
Go ahead.
I said, I think that's a big point, that our dogs are holding up because they are conformation sound.
Well, and I want to hit on a couple things. So number one, you're able to impact legislation just with your personal relationships. Okay, that's one. The other thing that you had mentioned when we were talking about this earlier that I wanted to kind of weave into this now is that hunters and dog people and all of us kind of working as a group, like NAIA does a lot of this, that we can all influence, right, anti-breeder, anti-whatever legislation by building these relationships. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, like when we're taking these people hunting at the preserve, we spend time with them. We get to know them. You're going to sit down and take a 10-minute break and drink a Coke or whatever it might be with them. And you start figuring out who their family is, those type of things. You start building those relationships. Then at lunch, a lot of times we're sitting down with them at the lunch table, what I mean? Getting a meal served. So now you're also building that relationship. And then in the afternoon, the two people you might have taken this morning now want to go back with you because they now have a bond with you because you hunted them that morning. So it's a big, and I can imagine this is not only in what I would call Southeast, the guided quail hunt places down here, but I would imagine that happens where they guide pheasant hunts and different other places, duck hunts and those type of things too. You're building a relationship. I know a lot of people that duck hunt. I'm not a big, I've never duck hunted, so I don't really know, believe it or not. But a friend of mine goes back to this same place every year because they're like family to them. And the same thing happens here. I'll see clients year after year after year after year back at some of the places we do quail hunts. So we're kind of building that relationship. And it's not we're not a bad thing, the boogeyman, because we're breeding dogs, you know.
Right. Well, and the numbers are pretty shocking, to be honest with you, when you look at the demise of even hunting for sport, never mind hunting for subsistence. People in this country just don't hunt as much. And so there are an enormous number of people in the United States of America who have very little understanding of hunting, of game management, of just basic husbandry of dogs, right? And so that disconnect, you're able to help, and is a sample for all of us to follow, to find ways to connect with elected representatives who have impact on this particular area.
Yeah, I mean, for me, one of the big things that I've noticed over the years, as far as doing the guided quail hunts and stuff, is that the younger generation is not coming. Mm-hmm. I'm still one of the younger ones, and I'm in my 50s. Mm-hmm. And like, my dad is 80. He's still doing it because they need someone to do it, and he enjoys it. But a lot of it's an older man sport, we actually have 2 ladies that are doing it, and they're actually in their late 50s and 60s also. So the younger generation not coming up, and we always need guides. I mean, a lot of these places down here, preserves, need guides because it's just, like you said, it's just kind of a dying sport, those type of things. And people are just not into it as like they used to be.
Yeah. And I think it's so important that we leverage the connections we do have, to continue, because it is not a very far off time that the generation that's coming up now, huge percentages of them just don't have any connection to this world. And so any way that we can help reach out and expose them to that, I think is really amazing. And the other part no, go ahead. Sorry.
One thing I would add is that a lot of these people that are coming bring their kids. So that's their first experience in this, is a 12-year-old that's going to shoot his first quail today, those type of things. And it's a big ordeal for them. And we try to make sure we memorialize that moment with video, with pictures, taking a picture on the Jeep that we were hunting out of today, sitting around with the dogs next to you and pictures and those type of things. So that makes a big moment for those kids. It's an Instagram moment for them.
Absolutely. I can remember being a kid going on my first hunting that's a thing. Talk to me too. I think this is super cool. You and your dad still doing this together. And we talk across the board in dog events, dog shows, particularly a lot of field trial stuff. The family, the deep involvement, the generational component of it. So talk a little bit about that, because to me, I grew up with that. My parents were both involved. I went hunting with my dad. Like, I trained bird dogs with my dad, so talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I haven't told you this story, but my granddad passed away before I was born, but he was 51 when he married my grandmother.
Oh, gosh.
So yes. And she was really young, and he was 51. So I have a picture of him in 1939 guiding quail hunts right where I live.
Oh my gosh!
I mean, I actually have a picture of him holding a Sweet 16, humpback Browning, and with a poly choke on the end. And that's the whole story with poly choke. He wanted a poly choke because he could shoot it anything he wanted to shoot it with. But so I have a picture of him and got a letter from someone that sent the picture to him and those type of things. So, and then when I came up, we just had dogs. I remember having beagles at one time, and then we had always had bird dogs, but some reason he got into rabbit dogs at one time. But we had a few beagles, But I remember the bird dogs. I remember going to field trials. I remember doing those type of things as a kid. And so when I got of age to kind of do the quail hunt, it's really good money for not working 20 hours a week, and I'm making the same money because you get a good tip and those type of things. So it really paid off for me as being a teenager. And then I got more involved in, I want my own dogs. I want to learn how to train my own dogs and those type of things. And it just kind of, has grown over the years. And I went to Brittany's because my dad had pointer setters. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But now he's hooked. But now he's hooked on Brittany's because he sees what we're doing with this. We don't need a big running pointer anymore. We got 2 smaller running pointers that are great, but we're just kind of more to the Brittany's, because it's a smaller dog for us, and a Brittany's supposed to be no more than 30 or 40 pounds.
Yep.
So I can pick one up with one hand, put it in the truck or whatever I need to do, and I don't have to feed an 80-pound dog anymore. You know what I mean? Those type of things. So we really enjoyed those type of dogs, and I guess I've turned into I know more about the Brittany than I do any dog, so that's why I'm really tied to them. Those type of things. I know all the bloodlines. I can take
exactly.
Trupanion is revolutionizing medical insurance for pets by providing the best possible experience to our members. And it's not some space-age dream. It's happening now. We pay your veterinarian directly while you're checking out, and we're the only ones who can, which means you have decisions in seconds, and you don't have to wait for reimbursement. So unlike with other providers, you'll keep more money in your pocket. Ask your veterinarian if Trupanion can pay them directly, because there's pet insurance, and then there's Trupanion.
The other topic that you kind of touched on that I want to come circle back to a little bit, talking about the dual dogging. This is, any of you listeners out there in listener land know, this is like one of my absolute passion projects. I do presentations on form and function. So I'm looking for you to give me some more information. Bobby Bryan, talk to me about the structure that keeps your dogs hunting until they're 11 years old and how that matches the dog in the field doing the work.
Well, for me, like when I first started purchasing Brittany's, the one thing I was really looking for dogs that were dual champions. They were good looking dogs, and they were hunting dogs, and trying to do both. And when I went to my first dog show, probably 20 plus years ago, I really got to analyzing why the dogs were the way they were, because I didn't understand all the conformation. I still don't understand all of it. I know they're supposed to be sound. I know they're supposed to have a chest. I know for Brittany's, they're supposed to be square, and they're supposed to, all of these angulations are supposed to be there, and I can't see them all the time, but I know what a good looking conformationally Brittany should look like.
Yeah.
Just because of my experience with that. It just helps my dogs be more sound. It helps them they're balanced when we're hunting. And I think it makes the longevity of them last longer and longer and longer. Because like I said, we're hunting some days. I might hunt Saturday and Sunday all day. My dad might take some of my dogs and hunt them Monday and Tuesday. Then he might have another hunt on Thursday, and I might take off Friday and hunt Friday, Saturday, Sunday again. Well, a lot of times, 7 of those dogs we might have hunted those 5 days that week. Well, that's hard to hold up to unless you're sound and your body's put together properly. We've had dogs that were not sound. They were great hunting dogs, but they didn't make it. I mean, they got washed out when they were 8 or 9 years old. They had hip problems. They had elbow problems. They had sight problems. And I think that's one reason why we're able to keep up with the demand of our hunting that way. And our dogs love it. I mean, they love every minute of hunting.
They live
so
for it.
It's really sad when they get 10, 11 years old and they can't hunt anymore.
Yeah. Well, and this is just reinforcing one of the things that I say a lot, because I talk to the bird dog guys as well as the show dog people, right? And just because you have a dog that will run itself to death doesn't mean it should have to. Like the heart and the desire and the drive and the determination that makes a great bird dog, when you pair that up with a structurally sound dog that meets the standard of the breed designed to do the work you're doing, then you have that package. And I think, and just too many people don't get that nexus, right?
And that's, I mean, one thing my dad always says about this over the last 20 years, I've been showing dogs. I have shown dogs, but a lot of times I hand them to a professional to do the showing, but I have shown them. My dad has actually shown them. So if you want to see a funny episode, that would me and him in the show ring, because we didn't have a handler. You know what I mean?
I do.
But his comment was, this show stuff helps these dogs. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, look at all the distractions that are at this show ring today. There's 1,000 people walking around. There's 1,000 dogs walking around. They've got to have their mind together. So when you do take them to the field, you're meeting a new person every day guiding quail hunts.
Sure.
Well, if your dog's never seen anybody, they're going to bark at that person because it's a stranger. I mean, that's what dogs do a lot of times. So this is making those dogs more acclimated to being around different situations that might make them uncomfortable. And that's what we're always trying to do when we're training, is always getting that correction. That's how I look at it. Every time a dog moves when I'm low training is a learning piece. If they never move, they're never going to learn.
That's right. That is so right. Got to set them up to fail so that they can succeed. That's a fact.
Right.
Okay. So this is, you are completely speaking my language. And I think that guiding quail hunts to me is like, I love it as a concept, but the thought of taking my dogs out with a bunch of guys who don't necessarily know what the one end of the gun to the other and it's going to shoot my dog. Like, your dogs have to be really damn broke.
Yeah. Some of our dogs are broke to kill, and it depends on the client. We've been doing it so long. Once we hunt the first round or two, then we kind of know where to go with our guiding. And then we orchestrate all this too. You're to the right 15 yards. You're to the left 15 yards.
Maybe 50 yards would be good for you, mister.
Well, I want them closer to me than farther away. But yeah, that's, and we got people who've never shot before. And some of those are the most memorable moments, because it might be a 14-year-old kid and this is his first experience doing this. And a lot of times on our videos, you'll see, got to take kids today. I got to expose kids today to this sport. So I have clients that we took 20 years ago. I'm now taking their grandkids, those type of things. I've taken some state senators, and now I'm hunting their great granddaughter, who is now who's 17 or 18 years old.
That's awesome.
Those type of things. So, I mean, that's where it kind of goes. And then we have, we've had some clients for 20 years that we go to their place and guide. And a lot of them are really conservationists too, because they're really trying to up their quail population, those type of things in this area, which, we're not as deep South Georgia. We're kind of middle Georgia, but we're Albany, Georgia is kind of, a big quail place down there. And then, of course, we have the other places around us that are very known for this. But we have added a lot of big preserves here that are big business, those type of things. I mean, they'll guide 120 days a year.
Yeah. I think, that's this is such a regional, so that's why this is such a cool topic of conversation. Quail plantation hunting is so specific to the South, right? Tennessee, obviously, Georgia, and it's very unique and very specific and very much the basis for anybody who is out here doing horseback field trials. The whole concept started on the southern quail plantations. So run through, I love the history of this. So run through a little bit of history of how this kind of came to be.
As far as where we started at in this,
the whole southern quail plantation thing, right? Like, it started clear back, like, pre-Civil War days. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it started way back then. My granddad, like I said, was guiding quail hunts in the 20s and 30s around this area. And of course, it was strictly wild birds.
Right.
It was they didn't have any release birds, those type of things. I remember I was born in the 70s. I remember being about 10, and we got our first incubator to raise our own quail because the quail were just dying out. There was they just wasn't making it as far as wild birds. We still have wild birds here, but I would hate to know I had to hunt them and bring home enough to eat. You know what I mean? Because they're just
So what's
they're
causing that? What's causing that? Is it climate changes? Is it just urbanization? Because I know quail populations are down. Like where I was doing a lot of hunting and field trial work was, Nebraska, Kansas, Iowa, that area. I know quail numbers are down there too. So what's the difference in your opinion? What are you thinking?
I think for our area, it's farming practices.
Mm-hmm.
There's no hedgerows anymore. There's no fence rows. Everything's sprayed with Roundup.
The CRP and that kind of stuff?
We don't really have enough. I mean, you know what I mean? We don't have any really. We have some wildlife areas around here but they're not really conducive to the quail because they're more of the deer hunter is taking over here. We're in big deer country here. This is where people are killing these Boone and Crockett deer in this area. And so that's a big area here. There's row crop still here, but there's no structure. There's no cover for the quail. There's no fence rows.
Right.
There's no hedgerows. There's used to be you'd have hedgerows that were so thick you couldn't walk through them, and that protected the quail. Well, everything gets sprayed now to maximize the field, and everything has electric fence on it, so it doesn't have any growth on it. So that's the big thing. You can go to some areas that still have old farming practices and find quail, and I think that's the key. And of course, I think the fire ant is a big problem too here. We have major fire. Yes.
Tell me about that. What is that? That I have not heard. Talk to me about that.
Well, I think if you have a small quail that hatches, and 2 fire ants gets on it and bites it, it's going to they don't really bite, they sting.
Yeah.
But I think that will hurt the baby quail because a baby quail is looking for a place to die when it's born. You know what I mean? I mean, they're just so fragile.
That's true. They have nowhere to live.
If you thought they couldn't drown in a centimeter of water, they can. You know what I mean? But those little quail are so in trouble at that age, and they're just so the fire ants are really bad here. Those type of things. And they're not a native species here. They
that was literally my next question. Fire ants? I don't think of in Georgia. How did they get there?
Well, they spread, I guess, coming across the same way with the armadillo. The armadillo came, and now it's over here in this area. So those are bad varmints that we have here that can, armadillo not necessarily going to mess with the quail, but those are just some invasive species that's come to this area. And the fire ants are terrible. I mean, you can see fire ant beds. Everybody's yard has one. Those type of things. So I would imagine if a quail, a baby quail walked across the fire ant bed, 2 or 3 sting it, now its legs are swelling up like you would whelp up, but now you're talking about 2 or 3 ounce bird. So it's probably worse on them than it would be on us.
My natural logical follow-up is, how do you keep the dogs out of these horrible things?
Oh, they're fine. The dogs are fine because they're running so fast. They're running so fast over them. Normally, it doesn't cause a problem. But a little quail, it might take them a second or 2 to get over a fire ant bed. You know what I mean? So now they've got them on there. And then when they hatch, see all that odor from the hatching probably attracts the fire ants to that area too. So
okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's just I think it's a complicated issue here that the quail are not as prolific as they used to be, but definitely the farming practices have changed. That's one thing. I had a great uncle who was he actually had the first hilltop kennel down not too far from where I'm at, and that was one thing that he always said was the farming practices have changed and those type of things.
Yeah,
because I mean they would hunt them every afternoon, and there was just plenty and plenty of quail to hunt.
Yeah. That's why I said I didn't know y'all had run out of quail too. Like I see it other places, but I thought you were still on just natural wild quail. So
we have
that's
a lot of put out birds, early release birds. A lot of people early release, make different 20, 30 bird cubbies and feed them, and after a week or two, if they can make it, they get pretty wild, and they're pretty challenging for the hunters. Also, when you get into a cubby like that's been put out and stayed out there for a couple of weeks, once you start talking, they leave. I mean, they know the game.
Yep.
So those type of
you got to
things.
learn how to be quiet and not be reefing on your dog the whole time. I mean, that's a thing.
Right. You can't hack them. You can't hack your dog to death, or the birds are going to leave.
No, if you got to hack your dog around, ain't going to be any birds there. I promise you.
Right. Yes, it is it's a fun thing. We've really enjoyed it over the years. Like you said, my dad and I have done it together forever and ever and ever. Pretty much every day I talk to him on the phone about bird dogs. If it's one thing, it's another about bird dogs. And then he's like, we need to do this year and this year. And then, of course, he'll call me back 2 days later and tell me the same thing again, and explain to me,
we call that dad-splaining.
Yeah.
When it's men to women, it's mansplaining. When it's dad to, it's dad-splaining.
Yeah. Yeah. And continuously telling me how to train dogs. You know what I mean?
Yep. Oh, dear God, I know what you mean. Yes.
Yeah. And he tells me exactly, he said, well, maybe tomorrow you ought to do a different location. And I was like, wow, that's great.
That's a great idea, Dad. Never would have thought of that.
You told me this 30 years ago,
You have more patience than I do, man. That's all I got.
We enjoy it. Like I said, it's fun to do. We got a lot together. He'll take a group, I'll take a group. And if we go to different preserves, he takes a Jeep and I take a Jeep. And then we come back at lunch and see who killed the most birds. That's the big thing, is who has the most at the end of the day. And if he ever beats me, you can't beat the old man. That's what I always hear.
No, can't do it. I totally hear that. And so, because I know there's going to be somebody out here in listener land that's going to want to know the answer to this question, I assume you eat the birds that you shoot on your hunts.
All the birds are being cleaned and processed for the hunters to take home. Yeah. What birds were killed last weekend are being sent home this weekend. The birds that were harvested today are being cleaned and processed for the next group. And then some of the places we guide, we're talking Rolling Stone owns one of the places that we guide at. He gives a bunch of birds away every year to the homeless shelters in Macon, Georgia. So
very good.
So he does a lot of conservation that way, and he gives back to the community of any birds that were not taken home.
There you go.
So that's always been. I wonder what that quail dinner looks like. You know what I mean?
I tell you what. I want to know if it's the little bacon wrapped breasts, or I do a quail cacciatore. I mean, come on.
It's the little chickens. They make them like little chickens.
Oh my God.
So they've got the wings on them and the legs and the breast, all the bodies together, and it's clean. And they put them together. It looks like a baked chicken, a roasted chicken is what it looks like.
Really tiny roast chicken.
But I'll tell you, the legs are the best thing on quail to me.
If you can fight your way through all the bones.
Yeah. As long as you don't overcook them, I'm fine.
All right. So here's what you're going to do. Bobby Brian, you're going to send me a quail recipe. We're going to post up with the podcast. That will be perfect. That will be perfect. Well, thank you so much. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I hope people will use this as an opportunity to just think about how can you do some outreach in your community that will help legislation, that will help people have access to purebred dogs, and think about purebred dogs and animal husbandry and all of the things that are sort of dying on the vine around us. And I think it's up to each one of us. So I really appreciate you sharing your thoughts on that, Bobby Brian.
Thank you for this opportunity today too. We, like I said, I hope that we can't lose what we've got, and I feel like we've lost a lot already. So, but I enjoyed it. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thanks so much.